I'm Nora Harden. I'm the Senior VP of Membership and Events with the Chamber and EDC. For those of you who might be joining us for the first time, we'll be here until 1 o'clock today. And we like these interactive sessions. We encourage questions. We want you to be engaged as much as you want to be in this conversation. We've got 3 parts to the presentation, and in between each of those sections, we're going to throw in some time for some Q&A. Please send those questions that you have via the Zoom chat feature. You can either send it to everyone or you can send it directly to Emma Mitchell, our host. We are so fortunate to have this amazing panel today. I can tell you that our planning sessions and our walkthroughs have revealed a deep level of knowledge from each of these panelists. So get your questions ready. These are experts. They're here to help. We are recording today's presentation and we'll make it available to the public within the next few days. If you know somebody who couldn't be here today, be sure and let them know. We can hook them up with the link to the recording. A little tip that kind of helps everyone identify each other here in these Zoom meetings. Most of you know this, some of you who don't. Click on the 3 little dots in your image, your panel image, and select rename to put in your full name and your company name. That makes it so much easier for people to reach out to you and to know who's in the room and who you're with. We'll also be doing a drawing for a door prize, and so you don't want to miss that, and that'll help us identify you a little better. I have just a couple of announcements from the Chamber and EDC. First, we are going to adjust our Chamber Connect schedule back to its original frequency of 2 times per month. So that means our next Chamber Connect will be on Thursday, July the 2nd. We have Jonathan Liebert from the Better Business Bureau lined up to talk to us about their new cutting edge program, Working Safer. Okay, next I've got a little recap on some recent successes on the legislative front. As you know, we are your business-friendly legislative watchdog, and please keep in mind that your membership dues help us do this work on your behalf. We all know, certainly, as we work to clear a path for our businesses and our economy to recover, that the regulatory environment is critical. So just a couple of words on House Bill 1420. Our team worked very quickly to review proposed bills and urged you, our members, to speak up to their elected officials, and guess what? It worked. So I'm happy to say that thanks to the outcry from the businesses like yours, House Bill 1420 was amended to remove several onerous tax provisions that would have been particularly harmful to employers in the Pikes Peak region. We were also successful in modifying 2 other bills that would have been increasing costs to business. Those were Senate bills, I think 205 and 215. And we supported 3 other bills that will work to put people back to work and help our businesses recover. Thank you. Thank you. I can't say thank you enough for your membership. We could not do this critical work without your support. And if you have any questions about any of that, want to do a deep dive on any of that legislative work, reach out to me. I'm happy to help. Okay, moving on. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our Chamber Connect sponsor, BBSI. Jenny Venetieri is here representing BBSI today, and she has a few words to share with you all about the amazing work they do to help businesses prosper in our region. Jenny?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Jenny Venetieri with BBSI. We are a local in-person team of subject matter experts here in Colorado Springs supporting the small to mid-sized business owner community in the areas of workers' compensation. We're self-insured for workers' compensation. We do HR, we do payroll, risk management, and talent acquisition. So it's a very collaborative model. We like to understand the story and the goals of the business owner and where they want to go so that we can align our services to support and meet those goals with them. So if you have any pain points in those areas or know of anyone who might benefit from a conversation with us, please send them our way. Thank you so much, Nora.
Thanks, Jenny. And thank you so much for your sponsorship. We love working with you guys. It's now time for the presentation. So today we're doing workforce hiring strategies in a virtual world. I'm going to hand things over to Stan Bendawa to introduce the panelists and get the show started. Over to you, Stan.
All right, thank you, Nora. Again, my name is Stan Bendawa. I have the honor and pleasure to moderate today's session. Just a little bit about my background. I am a senior implementation manager with T. Rowe Price. We're located here in Colorado Springs, up on Briargate. Been with T. Rowe Price for just a little over 18 years. I'm also pretty involved and active within the community. I serve on the board at the Boys and Girls Club, along with the board for East Lake Charter School here in Colorado Springs. Quick fun fact about me: when I'm not traveling and meeting with clients for business, I am chasing my 3-year-old and 6-year-old daughter around and hauling them to and from ballet and tap class. That's what I spend a lot of my spare time doing. So what I'd like to do today is introduce the panel that we have put together for today's session. Today we have Karen, along with Chelsea, Justin, and Shelley. So what I'd like to do next is just hand it over to them so that they can reintroduce themselves, and then we'll jump in the questions that we have for today.
Hi, my name is Karen King. I am a senior staffing manager with AdStaff, and I'm also an ambassador with the Chamber of Colorado Springs. I've been with AdStaff for about 6 years now, and I have a little over 15 years of experience in HR and recruiting processes. A fun fact about me is that we just adopted a 7-week-old Chihuahua pug mix. He is 5 pounds and crazy. So running around downstairs right now with my daughter babysitting him.
Awesome. I almost said good morning again, but it is still morning, except for Justin out there today. But my name is Chelsea Jensen. Thank you all for having me today. This is a pleasure, and I am a human resources consultant and trainer at Employers Council. So we have offices in Denver, Colorado Springs. We have an office up in Loveland, Utah, and in Arizona. And I've been there for about 6 years. And prior to coming to Employers Council, I worked in human resources as well, in the more of the benefits administration arena. But now I get to do a little bit of everything, which is fun, and get to support our members and, of course, businesses and organizations. So I'm excited to be here today. Fun fact, before I decided to go into human resources and get my business degree, I actually wanted to be a pilot. So I have a whole log of pilot hours that I have accrued, and I never actually went for my private pilot license, but kind of a fun fact that I actually almost got my pilot license before I got my driver's license. So that's me.
Thank you, Chelsea. Now we'll have to hit you up for flying and times to fly together. I'm Justin Flynn. I am the talent acquisition manager over at Formstack. I've been here for a little over 3 years. Been in the recruiting, talent acquisition, training and development space for almost 8 years. I've been doing mostly virtual remote life, as Chelsea kind of alluded to. I actually live in Indianapolis, where our other headquarters for Formstack are. And so been doing the remote recruiting and virtual hiring for quite some time. Fun fact about myself, a few years back, I traveled to Alaska and decided it'd be fun to take a helicopter onto a glacier, and then slipped and fell into a really cold river and had to be like roped out of the river by the pilot. It was really fun, good experience, but I don't really want to be cold again. So that is a fun fact.
I guess I'll go next. I'm Shelley Wyatt. I currently work for FINRA, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority organization, if you may not have heard of FINRA. I've been in the HR space for a little over 15 years, served in various functions, from talent acquisition to employee relations. So I have a pretty diverse background, benefits administration as well. So a pretty diverse background within the HR space. I guess a fun fact for me is my son just turned 15, so he now wants to get his driver's permit. So you're talking about a pilot. I feel like I'm going crazy because my husband is allowing him to drive a little bit in the car. But there's not a lot of cars on the street right now just due to COVID. So this is a great learning territory for him, but just please keep me in your prayers.
All right, well, thank you guys. All right, so for today's session, again, as Nora mentioned, we're going to break it out into 3 separate sessions. The first session is going to be related to job descriptions and job posting, followed by how to effectively filter qualified candidates. So reviewing resumes, filtering through the candidates based on their experiences. And then the third session is going to be focused on interviewing. So those are the 3 sessions that we have prepared. We will have some Q&A time in between each session, and then we'll also take a small break for a raffle that Nora will be administering. I will also encourage all attendees today to submit your questions via the chat room. Emma Mitchell will be monitoring the chat room, and then she will pose the questions to me, and I will pose them back to our panel members. I think with that, we can go ahead and, oh, one last thing. For any questions that we may not be able to get to today, or we may not be able to address, we will be monitoring or creating a parking lot. And then after today's session, we'll make sure that we follow back up with all attendees to address any questions that we may not be able to provide an answer to today. All right, so with that said, we're going to jump into the first question for today. First question is, how do you formulate a job description? And I'd like to go to Chelsea for a response on that one.
Great, thank you so much, Stan. I think when thinking about this question, we really got to start talking about first is why are job descriptions important? All right, and they really kind of lay a nice foundation for you when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to developing interview questions, which we're going to talk about all of those things today. They also help with performance management and, of course, what's expected on the job of employees. And a big reason, too, that they're important is they help you remain in compliance with various laws, right? So we've got the Fair Labor Standards Act, we have Americans with Disabilities Act, we have, of course, our Equal Pay Act, and some of that's coming down the pipeline, too, for next year. So a lot of the use of a job description can also help you remain in compliance. But to the question, how do you formulate a job description? It really starts with going back to what is the purpose of this job at our organization overall, right? What is the value that this job is bringing to our organization or our company? And so we kind of need to collect some information about it. So generally a good job description starts with a job analysis. So I sort of think of it as a funnel, right? So we're going to collect a bunch of information in the top of our funnel about the job. All right, so what are the different components of the job? Who does this job report to? What are some of the key duties in this job? What are some of the qualifications of this job? And that will really mean going to both the incumbent that's in the job and also maybe the manager or supervisor, potentially HR, and maybe even if you're at a small organization, getting leadership involved too. All right, so we're going to collect a bunch of information about the job, then we're going to funnel it into our job description. All right, and that's generally going to include an effective job description, both the essential functions, which are going to be the essence of the job, the reason the position exists, what is that person spending the majority of their time on? Okay, so those are some of the essential functions. Then we've got some of our additional functions, as well as our various job qualifications. So that's going to include your knowledge, skills, and abilities, and maybe any experience, number of years that somebody needs to have in that role, or maybe some equipment that they might need to use, and also work environment can come into that job description as well. Job description can also be another side note too, overall, really important for not only the things that I mentioned at the beginning of this, but also for retention too. So if you have an idea of how this job fits into the overall organization, that can also give employees to purpose in their role and understanding how their role adds value.
All right, thank you, Chelsea. So once we have the job description ready to go, I believe the next step was going to be posting the job description. So Karen, can you share some tips for posting job descriptions?
Absolutely. So I think the biggest thing that you want to do is, Chelsea talked about this a little bit, but making sure your job description is really clear. So knowing, the skill sets, what's nice to have, making sure that your job description is honest. I think that's the most important piece of it. If you need a degree for the position, put that on there. If you don't need a degree, you can put a degree as preferable with, experience in lieu of. There's a lot of different ways to post that. But if it's not a requirement, please don't add it in there. It confuses people, and then you'll miss out on applicants applying that maybe don't meet that qualification. You want to post your job in as many places as possible. So that will include any job boards that you have access to. It'll include sharing it to social media. Facebook, LinkedIn are good places to put things. But the most important place for you to post your job is going to be on your company website. If it's not on your company website, it doesn't appear to be a valid job. There are a lot of fake jobs that are out there that aren't real places that are people hiring. So getting it onto your company website will help to make sure that people understand that this company really is hiring. And if you're using another source to do your recruiting, so let's say you're working with a company like AdStaff, still post the job on your website and then direct people to that source. And that way you'll get applicants that are looking at your website as well as the candidates that that company is recruiting for you. When you're posting the job, use a template that looks like your company. So as much as you can get on there, if you can make it feel like your company culture, that really helps to make sure that you're getting the right candidates for the position. And then also make sure that that template is used across all job descriptions that you're posting, so that when somebody is looking at 2 or 3 different jobs on your company website or on a different site, they look the same and they have the same feel. And everybody can understand there's a cohesiveness to the positions. And then if you are able to, including a salary really helps with this as well. Some companies don't like to put the salary out there because of internal employees, or somebody's in the position now and it might be changing, things like that. So if you're not able to put it on the job posting, it should be one of the first things that you talk about in the interview process. Make sure that you are talking with candidates that are going to be interested in the position, that your salary requirements match with theirs.
All right, thank you, Karen. All right, so now that we've got our job postings up, just looking at today's attendees, today's audience, we've got people ranging from real estate, well, should I say industries ranging from real estate to construction to finance. So Justin, can you share a little bit about how you might bring your company culture into the job posting?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. Yeah, and I think, Karen kind of hit this a little bit on company culture. When you write a job description, that's what somebody reading about potentially wanting to apply and work for your company. It might be the first time that they ever see anything about your company. So you want to be able to at least get some information out there about kind of what you're doing. Karen also kind of mentioned a template. We have a template for the jobs that we post, and every one of our jobs have it. But an easy way to do it is really just talking about who you are as a company. Brief, couple of sentences, at least describing kind of who you are as a company, what your mission might be, and really then maybe focusing and putting attention back to saying, okay, this is our company. And then the next part, we always start every one of our job descriptions by really saying who you are. When we write a job description, it's great that there's requirements for jobs and skill sets that you need, and those are pretty clear cut. But putting a description of who we are looking for from an aspect of who you are. Maybe it can be as simple as you are passionate about data. You love living in a database and pulling reports and ensuring that you're making strategic decisions based on what you've been pulling out of there. And just giving more of a description of who the person is that we're looking for can really then just kind of invoke your culture a little bit more, because it says, okay, it's not just a robot and a role that we're looking to fill. It's more than that. It's a person as well. So that's a really easy way to do that. We've touched on kind of not necessarily putting every single thing that you might ever want in a job out of a perfect example, a perfect person for the fit, but putting a lot more of experience levels that are preferred, or proven experience in this field versus 5 to 7 years of experience. Again, company culture can be inclusivity of experiences and range. And really putting parameters on that might be exclusive of bringing in the best culture aspects to your team. Stats show, just from a male versus female applicant perspective, 60%, or males need to only see 60% of a job to actually apply to it. They feel pretty confident at around 60%, I'm going to apply for this job. Studies show it's nearly 100% of what a job description would say is what it takes for a woman to apply to that job. So if you can take out the exact specifics of, well, why do you need 5 to 7 years of experience? Why does that matter? Like, do you really need 5 to 7 years, or is it just the experience that you're looking for? So, and that just invokes your culture a little bit more. So it just kind of shows you, you are open to different thoughts. We're talking about who we are, who we're looking for, as much as it is, yes, you need the skill sets a little bit.
All right, thank you, Justin.
Yeah.
All right, so for this next question, we're going to shift gears just a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about candidate pools. So now that mostly all of us are working in a teleworking environment, how does that change or impact the candidate pool that you pull from, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, it's exponentially larger. I mean, for us at Formstack, I can speak a lot more closely to the tech world. There's not a lot there in Springs, right? There's some, and it's growing and it's exploding, right? But and if you need somebody in Springs or in Denver, yeah, you can pull in a lot of people, but you start taking out physical requirements of where you need to be working. There's 7 billion other people in the world, if you can do that. So it exponentially opens your talent pool up to being anywhere. Now, again, there are limitations to that depending on what roles you have, what you're hiring for, manufacturing, that kind of thing. But it really does open up the pool then to the best candidates across the board in different areas that you could have it. That's a big part. If you have a computer and you can do your job on a computer, in theory, you can do your job anywhere in the world. So it does exponentially open up your candidate pool. Speaking about diversity again and kind of the inclusivity aspect, it opens up your candidate pool to individuals that maybe have physical limitations, that can't work normally or can't get to a physical office, and they need accommodations at home, and they are really restricted to what roles they can apply for. If you are going to continue to do things in the remote living environment, it's really easy to work from your couch or your guest bedroom, like where I'm in right now, to just kind of be anywhere that you can. So it really does open up your pool of people. I mean, instead of maybe getting a couple dozen applicants because you're physically located in one area, I mean, you will start getting hundreds of applicants to your roles if you just post it to the United States or remote.
So Justin, just to kind of follow up on that question, when you are posting positions as such that you may attract talent from other areas, are there any additional things that you may want to consider? Like, would there be any impact to payroll potentially?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really easy to say, oh, cool, I'm going to hire my next employee in, Arizona. They're close by. Finance won't be too thrilled with you usually because there are tax ID numbers that you have to do when you employ an employee in another state. So there are some procedures that you will have to be putting in place, whether it's your in-house payroll people or your outsourced payroll companies. You're going to need to know the state's tax ID numbers in order to actually pay an employee in that state. Similarly, there might be some other, liability issues that might come through in terms of states that you can't hire from or that you can't do businesses, or countries that you can't do business in. If you start talking about global, we could talk days about global aspect. There are definitely, things there, but we always do, you don't have to tell your payroll people, hey, we're opening up and you need to have tax ID numbers for every single state. That takes a lot of time and money sometimes. Really though, if you get a final candidate that you feel like really comfortable, in the next couple of weeks, you're going to bring this person in the door, that's probably a good time, 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 2 to 4 weeks, to give your payroll, your finance team enough time to say, okay, I need to contact that state. I got to get the state ID number, and then kind of move forward from there. So just ensure that you're in constant communications with finance, payroll, whether it's in-house or externally. All
right, thanks, Justin. All right, so the next question I have here is, how do you identify the best places to find candidates? Shelley, can you weigh in on that one for us, please?
Sure. So I think that's going to be tied to the recruitment strategy of your organization in regards to the industry that you currently are seeking talent. And also how you're seeking that talent. So, Justin was mentioning, working in the space and technology. Everybody is going to be more in the computer-based environment, but I know we have manufacturing organizations and things of that nature on the call as well. So their strategy may be a little bit different if it's not going to be on the online job boards. But what I would tell you is, the most, I would say from my experience, the most strategic and influential opportunities have been through online job boards, which, you have Indeed, you have social media, LinkedIn, excuse me. You also have referrals is always going to be your number one, I would say, source of hire, because you have employees that are currently working for the organization that can really give an insight into the actual day-to-day aspects of that position. And they also have their own networks that they can, go out and talk to in regards to those opportunities. So referrals are always going to be your number one source of hire. Then you go to your career website. So, if your company website, having a career portal there so that individuals can be driven to your actual organization, their website, and then they can see the career opportunities that are going to be available to them. And then also that can drive internal and external talent, depending on the types of positions in which you're hiring for. So not only do you have referrals, you also have your internal talent that you can leverage in regards to promotional opportunities from succession planning, as well as being able to leverage them in other parts of the organization just based on the knowledge that they have for that organization. And then, of course, you have your job boards. Another job board that I would say is a great resource is, I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with Glassdoor, because Glassdoor not only will post your jobs, but then, job seekers can actually go out and see and get actual, testimonials from your employees around, how their job experience is in the organization, or what their, candidate experience was when they applied to the job, giving them some resources and insight in regards to how that recruiting experience was to help prepare them for that process as well. So, online tools are definitely, and career sites are going to be the number one tool, but just remember, referrals are definitely going to be your number one resource to attract and retain talent as well, because the more they can, your employees can speak and brand your organization is the best tool for recruiting.
Thanks, Shelley. Again, just one quick follow-up on that question. What are your thoughts on hosting events and different job fairs?
So I think we're in a very unique situation right now in regards to events, just because of COVID, and just even some of my outreach from a campus recruitment standpoint right now. A number of universities aren't even really hosting career fairs at this point, just because of the COVID and pandemic that we're currently in. So a lot of events and stuff will be virtual, which you will still have a lot of virtual events, especially from, veteran events. They normally have a lot of online job fairs as well. So I think, we're getting creative in this space now where a lot of universities, other organizations are doing things virtually, which I do suggest to all employers here to, maybe get the software and the technology to be able to do that. Or even if it's Zoom, you could do something where you have some of your leaders within your organization all coming together, and you're inviting certain people to maybe have a conversation around different opportunities within your organization. But it definitely, it's not going to stop from a posting standpoint, but what I would tell you, events probably will be curtailed for the later part of this year, and then probably early in 2021, you'll start to see more events being back into more of a physical standpoint, just because of what we're dealing with from a pandemic standpoint.
All right, thank you, Shelley. All right, so the next question before we get into QA is going to be related to diversity. So what are some of the steps small to mid-sized companies can take to add more diversity to their teams? Chelsea, would you mind answering that one for us?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And diversity is absolutely a hot topic right now. And I would say first and foremost, when you think about starting with this and talking about diversity and inclusion at workplaces and organizations, it really starts at the top, right? It starts with your culture. It starts with your leadership team and how your leadership team really needs to support, of course, recruiting diverse candidates, and they need to have buy-in and also share and have visible support for it. So that's kind of where to start, is really to start talking to your leadership team, finding the buy-in. And some of these conversations might be tough too, right? Where are we with our diversity and inclusion in our organization now versus maybe where we want to be? And what are some things that we can do to bring it up? So a couple of things, of course, Justin and Shelley kind of mentioned we are in this interesting time where we are in a virtual world, and of course, like Justin mentioned, there's more access to a wider pool of candidates because we are virtual. Of course, taking into consideration, where you're hiring them will affect taxes and all of those things. So you do have a little bit wider reach with some of this virtual the virtual jobs. But also Employers Council, and those of you who aren't familiar too, we help our members with lots of HR matters. We have employment law attorneys, we have HR professionals on staff, and we actually teach and train courses, and we do have some diversity inclusion courses as well. So starting to educate your workforce as well is helpful. Of course, you can dig into some other ways. Some other things you might look at is affirmative action plans, right? We have pay equity audits. We can also help develop diversity and inclusion plans. So if that's something you're looking for your organization, that's something we can help as well. And of course, we're always there for advice and assistance. But I would say overall, to start with this at your organization, it's time to start having some conversations about this with leadership team and getting them on board, because that's really what's going to sustain the efforts with this piece.
All right, thank you, Chelsea. All right, Emma, how are we doing in the chat? I think we're ready to go into Q&A.
Yeah, we have a few questions. So the first question is, when you're looking for candidates, is it a liability when you have somebody applying that is unemployed? A lot of people have said when people are searching for jobs, it's better to have a job while you're looking. Should employers pay attention to that, especially right now regarding COVID layoffs and things?
Okay, Karen, would you mind answering that one for us?
Absolutely. So it's actually never really a liability to be looking for a job when you're unemployed, as long as you left your last position on good terms. That's really the key piece. If you have references from your last position, you're not going to have trouble. And the benefit of being unemployed is the amount of time that you have available to you. Job searching takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to research, to find jobs to apply to. Applications take a lot of time. Interviewing takes a lot of time. And when you have open availability and you can get there tomorrow, that gets you kind of a step up on someone that may not be available to interview for a week or two. And then they aren't going to be available to start for a couple of weeks, up to a month. They're going to need to give notice. So especially right now with the COVID layoffs, it's really not a question. If you are unemployed and you tell somebody you were laid off due to COVID, that pretty much ends the conversation, and you can move on to talking about what you're looking for in your next opportunity.
All right, thank you. Shelley, any additional thoughts that you'd be able to share on that topic?
Yeah, sure. Just to really confirm what Karen was saying, if someone is unemployed, I think it's not a liability at all. It's just more of, I would say, in the selection process, just probing a little bit more to kind of get an understanding of why they, are unemployed at that point. It could be a number of different reasons why they're not currently working. It could be personal reasons, medical reasons. There's so many different things. It's more, what I would say is more around the scope of the work that they have done until that point. And if there's a large gap in their employment, that's when you really want to start to maybe probe a little bit just to make sure their skills are current. But it shouldn't deter you from, exploring a individual that maybe is currently not employed, because it could be several different reasons on, what that reason would be. And then, of course, as Karen had mentioned, COVID has, played a very huge part in the unemployment rates across the nation right now. So if anything, I think employers should really look to individuals that maybe aren't employed at this point to see if there's a way that they can, reach out and start to gainfully employ some of these folks that have been impacted by the pandemic that we have. So it's definitely not a liability. If anything, it just might be additional questions that maybe are asked on the selection process. But I would not consider someone for an opportunity just because they're not employed at this point.
All right, thank you, Shelley. Emma, looks like we have one more question to get to in the chat.
There's actually a couple if we have time. If not, we can push to the next. What are some simple listing, job requirement, or educational requirement changes that companies could make to help attract diverse talent?
All right, Justin, I'm going to direct that question to you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think this one, diversity comes in all different shapes, sizes, what you're actually, trying to focus on, but simple things, really simple things, right? The needs of the job versus what you want. Do you really need a degree to join a job? I can tell you, I've been here at Formstack for 3.5 years, and I've never once looked at someone's education requirements. I typically have never done that, and I've recruited for 7 years straight. So it's just, unless it's an absolute requirement that you have to have a certification, sometimes you might, depending on a certain certification to work on some kind of equipment, makes sense. But if you don't need it, don't put it, because you're immediately disqualifying good candidates. Again, job requirements, only put the things on there and do an assessment of, what do I really need? What can I take out? What's fluff? Because again, people might not spend a bunch of time scrolling through a 16-page job application. If they have to scroll 3 or 4 times looking at a job requirement, you might be losing their interest. 5 to 10 minutes on an application sometimes is good. Yes, questions are helpful and that kind of things, but simplifying your job descriptions by really only putting the needs, removing the unnecessary fluff to the job automatically increases your pool of applications. And then some of those years of experience, I think, as well. Proven experience over, saying literally the phrase proven experience with X skill set versus 3 to 5 years of experience with X skill set. Because again, what does the years of experience actually matter versus somebody's actual skill sets? If they've learned it in a year and are better than your top person, then good for them. You're going to get a really probably inexpensive resource that's going to be one of your highest performers. So again, I think just removing some of the disqualifiers that would be there that are just there because that's what people have done forever, and then just really those fluff things that you want, automatically help increase your diverse talent. And then really focusing on maybe some specific job boards. There's a lot of diversity job boards out there, connecting with different groups, whether it be, again, you can't leverage LinkedIn and networking enough. If you have a really strong referral network, use it. Your network is your net worth. So people believe that. People in the job market right now believe that. There's 37 million people unemployed in America right now. So there's a lot of people that are looking for work that, can really just hone in on asking some questions and removing the fluff.
All right, thank you, Justin. Chelsea, any additional thoughts that you want to share on that one?
No, I just echoing Justin a little bit, which kind of goes back to what we first talked about with job description. Remember I said how that lays the foundation? It really does. And just sometimes job descriptions are just one of those annoying things that we have to do, but it's so important if we can make them effective and make them good and really, be thoughtful about them and, really take some time to build a good one. Again, going back to that job analysis where you're collecting lots of information about that job, to make an effective description, it's going to really help you in so many ways. And I think, like Justin said, and we see this a lot with our members, sometimes you just get, you know, that education requirement on there gets kind of stuck on that job description forever. And it's just kind of like, this is what we've always done, instead of taking the time to really dig in. The more time you put into that, it will pay off for you in so many ways, including helping you get, you know, those diverse candidates and opening that up.
Can I just make a quick comment? So, you know, definitely agree with Justin and Chelsea. The more open you are to your job description, definitely is going to be critical for you to attract the talent that you want. But I just want to you know, reiterate that you don't want to create a job description to say, oh, this is a job description that I'm using to try to attract diverse talent. No, you're going to create that job description for that job. And then once you have that core job description, then you can leverage other resources to attract diverse talent. So you have the job that you need. You're not going to create a description to say, oh, I think I'm going to be able to get, you know, more diverse talent because now I'm going to take away, you don't need a college degree. No, if you need a college degree for that job, then that's the requirement for the position. But if you don't need it, then of course you don't have to put it on there. So you want to ensure that you're always creating that job, as Chelsea said, to lay that foundation for that position. And then you leverage resources to attract talent from multiple different areas to be able to, who would be able and qualified to do that job. So you don't want to tailor a job description to try to attract diverse talent. What you want to do is create the job description for the job and then leverage resources to attract diverse talent to that position. So that's just one thing I wanted to add there.
I have one thing to add to that as well. And I think if you want to try to get some diversity in your company, I think you need to be open to different types of industries coming into your company. So I know a lot of times people post a job and they say, well, I need someone that's done this exact job in this exact industry in order for them to be able to do the job. That's not necessarily true. So keep an open mind about what other industries might be able to transition into your industry, what other skills, like somebody that's worked in a different type of job, how might they be able to do this job, and hire a little bit more for a culture fit and intelligence and things like that, rather than they've done this exact job so they're the right person for the job.
Karen, that's such a good point, because when we think about diversity, sometimes we always think about ethnicity, right? Or gender, but it's diversity of thought. So someone may have been in another industry, they're going to bring a whole different viewpoint into another industry, the way that they have to problem solve and manage individuals and their leadership capabilities and their styles. So that's such a critical point that you just mentioned. So when we think about diversity, it doesn't have to be just on gender, ethnicity, or disability. You know, it can also just be, you know, diversity of thought, coming from a different industry, a different background. You know, those are some of the things that, you know, we as leaders within organizations, we have to also have that, you know, viewpoint where diversity can span across so many different things. And so I'm glad you mentioned that, Karen. Very good comment.